Okay, as a continuation of the vehicle inspection, we're going to focus now on tire condition and doing a proper apparatus tire inspection. First of all, we need a minimum tread depth measurement, which is 4/32 of an inch in any two adjacent treads. 4/32 of an inch is very small. You can see that this tire is actually in very good condition. 4/32 will be obvious. It's 1/8 of an inch. When we do the inspection, we want to make sure that the tread wear is even across the surface of the tire. If it's worn in the center more than the outside, that's an indication of overpressurization. If it's worn more on the outside than the inside, that's underpressurization. So the wear should be even across the face of the tire. As you continue your inspection, you should be looking at the entire tire surface for any foreign objects, nails, bolts, or cuts, or tread separation within the treads. That's a deterioration of the tread condition within the tread, and that's due to overstressing. And it's unusual in our tires because our tires are replaced frequently and they're very sound quality, and you should be doing a very thorough inspection on a daily basis. You want to look at the sidewall of the tire, make sure it's smooth and even, and that there's no bubbles, no cuts, no gouges, no grooves in the visible area of the tire. Once you've looked at the entire tire, it's important to move the truck at least a couple of feet to get the footprint of the tire into a position where you could see the bottom of the tire as well, because you could have a hidden foreign object in the bottom of the tire. That goes for the front tires as well as the dual tires on the back of the truck. Once you look at the outside of the tire wall and you complete the inspection on the outside, it's important to carry the inspection over to the inside of the tire wall, checking for the same things: any gouges, cuts, deterioration, or foreign objects. Back on the outside, we want to check the lug nuts, make sure that they're all in place, and that the torque marks are also in place. These are indicators that the shop mechanics put in place once the lug nut is torqued to whatever force that it needs to have to keep it tight on the wheel. So all of these need to be inspected for integrity. If they're cracked or missing, that's an indication that the lug nut has loosened up, and you need to report that immediately to your company officer. In this area, you need to look at the seal on the front bearings to see if make sure there's no oil or grease leaking in this area. And then you want to inspect the rim integrity, make sure there's no dents, cracks, or any blemishes in the paint that would indicate any kind of damage or excessive wear or corrosion or rust.
Go.
Okay, today we're going to talk about doing a steering inspection. First thing we're going to start with is the play in the steering wheel. It shouldn't be more than 2 inches in a 20-inch wheel. We want to make sure that the truck is off, because we don't want any power assist to hide any kind of play in the steering mechanism. We're going to look at all the parts in the next segment, but the first part is to make sure that there's no play in the steering wheel. We turn the wheel so it's turned all the way to the left, and we can watch the tire as well as move the steering wheel at the same time. I take the steering wheel, I turn to the left until I see the tire move to the left a little bit. From that point, I want to find a fixed point of reference. I like to use the turn signal lever, and I want to place my fingers in alignment with where that is on the wheel. Okay, once I have my fingers in place, then I'm going to turn the steering wheel to the right while I watch the tire. As soon as the tire starts moving to the right, then I know that's the extent of the play in the steering wheel. So as I move it back to the right, I see the wheel move to the right. I measure the distance from the stationary object, the turn signal lever, to where my finger is. It shouldn't be more than 2 inches. Anything more than 2 inches should be reported as excessive play in the steering. Okay, I've tilted the cab so that we can have a really close look at the steering components, but it's possible to see all of these parts from a creeper from the underside with a flashlight. If you look over in this area right here, you'll see a circular rod that goes up to the front, and as my assistant will turn the steering wheel, you'll see this is where the input, when you turn the steering wheel, goes into the power steering box. Okay, you want to check that joint, make sure it's intact. Look at the steering box, look at the hoses, make sure there's no hydraulic fluid leaks in this area. Out of the steering box is a part called the pitman arm. The pitman arm moves forward and back and moves this part, which is called the drag link. The pitman arm drags this link forward and back. Okay, you can see here another example of the castellated nut with a cotter pin. You should make sure that cotter pin's in place and that nut is tight. There's also one at this joint underneath where the drag link attaches to the steering arm. It's important to inspect the steering arm on a regular basis, at least once a week. We have had an incident of this breaking off and the steering being lost. So we want to look at this for any kind of rust or any kind of obvious deterioration of this joint as well. When the pitman arm moves forward and back, the steering arm moves forward and back, thereby turning the wheel left and right. If you look around the back side of the tire here, you'll see the lower steering arm, which is right here. Another castellated nut and a cotter pin, and it's attached to this circular rod that goes to the other side that's known as the tie rod. This part right here is the tie rod end. If you notice, this one's been recently replaced because they do wear out. It has a rubber guard here to protect the grease that's inside, and you need to make sure that this rubber guard is not deteriorated or falling off, exposing that joint to road debris as you go down the road. You want to look at the tie rod all the way across, make sure it's not damaged, and then we're going to go to the other side and inspect the tie rod end on the other side and the lower steering arm on the other side as well. Okay, now we're on the right hand side of the truck, and we're going to take a look at the other side of the tie rod right here and the tie rod end. There's another castellated nut with a cotter pin. I'm going to make sure that this one is also intact and it's not damaged. Here's the rubber seal that protects the joint. This rubber seal should be intact and should not have any evidence of wear on it. Also, this bolt should be tight, and you want to look in this area for any other signs of damage where a foreign object may have flown up off the wheel and hit or damaged anything in this area.